Welcome to my take on how to win an Emmy with your drone. I'm Mike Cibola, and I've been nominated for 6 Emmys and won 3, the latest coming this year for my piece on Maryland Public Television entitled Water from the Air. But more about that later. In this presentation, we're going to look at just what the Emmy is, what it stands for, and how the heck you even get nominated in the first place. We'll see what techniques you can apply to make your shots Emmy-worthy, including storytelling with visuals, the importance of knowing your client and your audience, and what that means to how you shoot. We'll talk about the role a good support team plays in any creative process, including drone flight. We'll discuss the aviation concept of time and type and how it applies to drones. And last, of course not least, we'll look at specific shots that every drone pilot should learn and have in their arsenal of moves to make their work Emmy-worthy. A little bit about me. I grew up playing with model rockets and at one point even earned my private pilot's license and now fly single-engine airplanes. My background's in television and film, so when drones started becoming a viable alternative to hiring a helicopter for aerials, it was a natural fit for me, and I eventually got my Part 107 certificate, commonly referred to as a drone license. My company is Mid-Atlantic Drones. We specialize in aerial data gathering for construction, aerial inspections, and aerial cinematography, which is what we're concentrating on today. Let's take a look at the Emmy itself. Originally the holy grail for broadcast television productions, the Emmy has expanded to include online network shows. But the one thing it's always stood for, and continues to stand for, is excellence. But how does it work? Among the Primetime Emmy Award rules, a show must originally air on American television during the eligibility period of any given year. In order to be considered a national primetime show, the program must air between 6 p.m. and 2 a.m. and to at least 50% of the country. If it airs to less than 50% of the country, it can still be eligible for a regional Emmy Award. Regional or national, the judging guidelines are the same. Your work must be submitted by a member of the National Academy of Television Arts and Sciences, or NATAS, to be considered. Judges are fellow members of the Academy who award points based on various creative and technical elements. So the Emmy stands for excellence. If you win an Emmy, someone has recognized the amount of work you've put into your project and the marks you've hit from pre-production to release. Well done. It also stands for success. It says that you are a successful person, that you have managed to achieve a level in your industry that many folks only aspire to. It stands for quality. Someone has measured your work against a set of standards and deemed it of sufficient quality to be recognized. It says you and your team have the experience to take a project from beginning to end successfully. So how do you make an Emmy winner? Is there a secret formula? On the face of it, that's a bit like asking how to make a viral video. You can study what's been done before successfully, but there's never a guarantee that your video will go viral, or that your well-constructed TV piece will win an Emmy. In his book, Steal Like an Artist, Austin Kleon goes into how to take inspiration from others. The first thing to remember is that failure is an option. You're not going to hit a home run every time you come to bat. In fact, you're going to strike out a few times. It's okay. Just don't let it defeat you. Taking it a step further, you should study works that you like. If there's a drone shot that you've seen that you love, dissect it. Why do you like it? What makes it work? We'll be talking about specific shots later, but one thing to remember is that creativity is a collaborative process. Even though you may be flying a single operator drone, you shouldn't be working alone in the long run. I started in the business and spent most of my career as a TV and video producer. And back then the environment was a little bit different. Cameras cost tens of thousands of dollars and weren't even close to the quality of today's iPhone. 3-person crews plus producer and PA were commonplace. Today, the bar to entry is a little bit lower. The tools are relatively cheap and the technology very high quality. And the days of having a large crew is long gone. Besides being the technical support, these people also brought creative and artistic insight to your project. Now, it's all gone. But we still can't do it alone in a vacuum. Creativity is a collaborative process and is enhanced by the back and forth it brings. So you've got to try at all costs to keep collaborators in your stable, to help keep your projects fresh and to nurture the creative soul, both yours and that of the project. How do you do that? Well, first, you got to have a story. So what's that have to do with drone imaging, you ask? I'm just gathering images, you say? Well, to that, I reply, your story is the way that your images are flown and presented. In this Emmy-winning piece I did for Maryland Public Television, we had the task of showing the visual best of Maryland from a drone perspective, without making it a travel log. We wanted to make something that focused on the beauty of the state, not the specific locations. At the same time, we had to get from A to Z. There had to be some sort of theme. That's our story. A loose one, granted, but still a story. How you or the producer eventually put the images together for the final piece is one thing, but you've also got to pay attention to how each shot is composed and executed. We'll get to this in detail with specific examples later in the presentation. Next, know your audience. This will dictate your approach and in many cases guide your style. You don't want fast-paced, hot-dogging shots when your subject is natural beauty and your audience is used to seeing the shot for what it is. In the same vein, wide-encompassing, slow-developing moves won't work when your subject is extreme sports, for instance. Your style and moves must match the program and the audience. Trust yourself. Know the limits of your equipment and your abilities, and work within that. While working on water from the air, I wanted to get extremely close shots of waterfalls in western Maryland. I'd flown large waterfalls before, so I knew that the currents, the air currents surrounding it would be extremely unpredictable, and they were. In addition, the entire area was very unpredictable with GPS coverage, which meant not only did I have to deal with manual flight and little to no GPS stabilization, I also had to contend with air currents and lens spray from the waterfalls themselves. I worked around it by incorporating as much foreground into my shots as possible and looking for other angles, such as this top-down shot, to make the sequence work. Next, you gotta be willing to kill your darlings. This is the shot that you're so invested in that you can't possibly cut it out. Like the one of the fishermen at sunrise, where you got up at 4:30 just to be there at the right time. Or the one from the boat that nearly took all day to arrange and fly. Remember, if it doesn't fit, if it doesn't move your story forward, you've got to cut it. This is where a support team comes in handy. Call them in, but make sure you listen hard to what they have to say. It's not always easy, but they're usually saying what you already know, but don't want to admit. Take their advice, kill your darling. And always stick to what you know. Hopefully, the more you do something, the better you get at it. In aviation, we've got a term for this. It's called time and type, and it's determined by the number of hours you have flying a particular type of airplane. The same goes for drones. Don't take an aircraft you've never flown or have logged limited time with to a mission. If you're bogged down on the technical end, you won't be able to focus on the shots. Take time, Learn the aircraft, find the nuances, and get proficient with your tools. If you forget everything else that I've said, the one thing you should remember is that the key to a dynamic drone shot is foreground. The shots you choose and the moves that you make should contain some foreground element that will enhance the movement and make the shot more dynamic. Take this shot of Broad Creek near Annapolis, for instance. The focus of this shot is not the jet ski, it's the beauty of Maryland waterways. If we were shooting the jet ski, we'd be much closer with a lead and follow transition. So the challenge was how to make the shot interesting without focusing on the jet ski itself. The solution was to add foreground. I directed the driver to zip past the dock a couple of times as close as she could. I framed the shot to focus on the shoreline and the pilings to give it some foreground movement, and flew at a slower speed so the jet ski would overtake me and eventually reveal themselves, and that added some interest to the shot of the water without distracting too much from the central focus of the scene, which was the waterway. Finally, let's look at some specific types of drone shots every drone pilot should know how to fly. Sunrise and sunset. Okay, cliche, I get it, but still a very powerful drone shot if done correctly. The key here, again, is to have foreground movement. Remember, since the foreground is dark, you want to make sure you're not showing too much dark foreground, since there will be almost zero detail there. The sunrise shot is nice, but there's too much foreground once we rise up and reveal the boats. The foreground adds nothing at that point. This one, much better. The silhouette is used as a reveal for the sunrise and actually adds to the appeal of the image. And since the piece was about lighthouses, the juxtaposition was perfect. Here's another example. Your window for a good sunrise is very small. Use an ND filter to extend your time with the big orange ball, and move off of objects to reveal the sun, instead of simply starting with it in the shot. One other thing, make sure your lens and filter are clean. When you're shooting into the sun, every little piece of dust will show up. Same thing with sunset. You need some foreground to show movement and give it some dynamic appeal. Here we moved off the gazebo. If this were a high-budget show, we would have lit the gazebo and made it an even better shot, but most of the time you have to work with a light that's there. There are many types of reveals that work nicely with the drone. This is a push reveal. We start on the lighthouse and end on the boat. You could use this shot if the subject is the water or the boat. If you're talking about the lighthouse, do the opposite move where you start on the boat and reveal the lighthouse. Still very nice. Here's another one. Here's another example. We already showed the side reveal with the sunrise shot, but it also works well in the daylight. The trick is to work backwards to your ending frame, since that's what you're eventually going for. Here's another example. Here's another one. This one also uses opposing movement of the drone and waves, then the low follow in the wake keeps the interest going even though the shot is a bit long. Here's a top-down reveal. I shot this one early in the morning so the dock was lit, but the water was not, yielding an almost black reveal to see the dock. This one I like to call a combo reveal. It's a head down where you're flying from high to low, but at the same time you're raising your gimbal. Once your angle is below the horizon, your subject breaks the horizon line, revealing it from the jumble of objects surrounding it. It works really well here, where you can see the lighthouse at the beginning of the shot, but your focus is really drawn to it when it's revealed above the horizon line. Very effective visually. This shot is also a good example of that. Another thing to keep in mind is to stay low. As we skim across the water here, we really get the sensation of movement, and it adds a tremendous amount to the shot. Sometimes with a shot, you have to fly high, like these shots near Las Vegas. When you do, you should always include something to show scale, which I didn't do here, unfortunately. A person, a vehicle, an animal, anything to give a visual clue so it doesn't look like a model or a small hill. Here's another thing to consider. Opposing action, even slight movement, can add a nice feel to your shots, enhancing the visual interest. And let's not forget the classic top-down shot. Here's one in Great Cranberry Island, Maine. Another technique I like to use I call drop-off, where the bottom drops out of the shot. You can get the effect many ways, including going from land to water. The key, if you don't have a big drop-off, is lots of close foreground to give you the release of going from claustrophobic to wide open. The last thing I want to mention is the role that lighting plays. Most of the time, we're limited to what Mother Nature provides. Take full advantage of that. Find out when the light is best for your subject and be there with your drone. Usually early morning and late afternoon is best any time of the year, with spring and fall providing the best quality of light for longer periods. Winter light is good, but trees and bare landscapes are brown. Well, that's it for this presentation of how to win an Emmy with your drone. If you remember nothing else, remember this. Foreground is your friend. Incorporate it whenever possible. Know the purpose of your shots and use your movements to convey it. And always do your homework. Know the best time of day for light. Who knows, if enough people see what you've done and like it, maybe you'll win that Emmy. I'm Mike Cibola on behalf of Mid-Atlantic Drones and the New York City Drone Film Festival. Thanks for joining me.